All right, guys. Hey, Paul McLean here, and we got a very special guest. First of all, welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. I was so excited about the guest I got on. I almost didn't welcome you, but I'm excited because you get to listen to Matt for the next, and I get to listen to him for the next like 40 minutes, and we're really going to dive into I think what matters most, which is the psychology behind the in-home and the phone script. This is the stuff where if you're like, I want to go out there and hit the next level. I want to be a 40K producer. I want to go out there and crush it. This is the stuff that matters most. And so, Matt, thank you for joining, dude. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah.
And I am excited. I don't know if you could tell, it's like on my face. Like I was trying to hold it in, but I'm excited about what we're going to cover because I know for myself, Matt, like I got started at 19. And one of the things that I did early on was I found somebody that I was like, man, when I listen to the way they train, it just, I get it. Like it just makes sense to me. Like it resonates with me. And then once I found that, which I found it in you, dude, it was like nonstop. I listened to podcasts and training, and there was even a season of my life where I just felt like a 6'3" man, and
That was a short season.
yeah, it was a short season, but it was when I was repeatedly listening to these calls and I hear your stories, and I was like, man, but I really did my best to consume as much of that as possible because it did help me really understand the psychology behind selling. I was 19. I had not had a lot of sales background, but I did know that for me to get good and best serve clients, I had to understand clients. I had to understand who I was, my position, and if I understood my position, I could grow my position through the conversations, through my responses to clients, and then I would show my position to them. And then as I went through this, sales became a lot more, I guess, easier, but also it became more enjoyable for me, Matt, because when I'd sit with a client, it was just like I was leading and directing them, and they were just following, and that's the way it should be, right? I was transferring my thoughts and ideas where they were like, okay, this makes sense, and it was easy, opposed to before, it was almost like I had to be, seemed like pressure, and I felt like I was kind of combative, and I was trying to just get that sell, and dude, I learned a lot of that from you, man, and so that's what we're going to dive into, and just so you guys know, which you might already, but Matt, your track record in sales with FFL, like in the beginning, I think it's very important when people set standards because it doesn't just, help your bank account, but did you help everybody because you made people believe that at the time, like, hey, 40, 50 grand a month's possible.
Right.
Now it's like just second nature. It's been embodied and it's like infused in the DNA of FFL. But for everybody on here, a lot of you guys are watching this and you're standard setters. Like it's just going to keep getting better. Like the people that are not even with FFL will be the best producers. We haven't even met them yet. Will be the best business builders. We haven't even met them yet, and which is pretty cool to think. But let's get into it, man. So let's first start with let's talk about like the word tracks. I remember back when I got started, those kind of helped me understand the psychology behind phones and in-home and just different things you could say that would really tee you up the way you should be teed up in your posture and position. Kind of get in that, man. Like word tracks, why they're important, what does that look like, and let's get into it, man.
For sure. Let's we can start with the phone in regards to like what's important as far as the psychology behind that phone call. And I think the number one thing that is important is your tone, not sounding like a telemarketer, and your cadence. My preference for most people is them to have a quicker, faster cadence, and it slows down the older the client gets. But the reason why a fast cadence on the phone is effective is because you can verify the information that they filled out quicker, and then you are not a telemarketer that much sooner. And that creates a different emotional state for the client and puts them in the picture of what we're trying to do, which is set an appointment. I think a couple key things too, Paul, that we've talked about is like scarcity is where the value is. So when you're setting appointments and you're literally like, what time are you and your spouse generally home from work? And they say, we both get home at 6:30. Okay, it's going to take me 10 or 15 minutes to get you this information you requested. I don't have a 6:30 or a 7, but I can squeeze you in between about 7:30 and 8. Does that sound fair to you? When you set those standards and those scenarios for yourself, it becomes a lot more of a scenario where they know that you're busy. I think a lot of times, especially with new agents, they'll be like, well, I've got a 1 o'clock or a 5 o'clock. Which one's best for you? And they'll say neither. Well, I got a 8 o'clock and a 6. It's
Yeah. How
like,
about tomorrow?
yeah,
How about the next day? I got Monday through
in
Friday.
15 more minutes, I've got another slot. It's like,
Yeah, dude. I mean, think about that, like the doctor-patient situation. If you call the doctor up and he's like, "Hey, oh yeah, you could come in right now, tomorrow. I haven't had an appointment in a couple weeks. Love to see you." You're like, dude, I do want to get seen because I have chest pains, but I think you might kill me.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to meet with that person. You want to meet with somebody that's busy, that seems important. And Matt, the one thing I want to point to with that, because I remember you saying that a long time ago, and I made it a part of my script. And the breakthrough for me was, what I realized is in certain times when it was like an easier booked appointment, I would slide off of the whole, I could squeeze you between appointments either at 6 or 7 to do my best to get out there at that time, which
Right.
time is better. But if it seemed like it was going great, I would just say, I got a 7 o'clock or a 6 o'clock. Will that work for you? And what I realized is when I say stuff like, I could get you in for 15 minutes either at 6 or 7, do my best for you. What time is best? I know it's important. If I said that every time, what it was doing is it wasn't just a posture that I was letting them know who I was, that I was a professional, I was a doctor to the patient, that I'm in control, that my value supersedes the value I get in a commission, that they need me, I don't need them, all that. But when I would say it every time, it would remind me too. So that when I called the next client, I was listening to myself say that. So it was a reminder that, no, Paul, you are in control. Because I think most people, man, I want you to speak to this. Their problem is how they see themselves. Like they don't see themselves as a person that is in control, that they're doing the client a favor. They almost are just like the needy salesperson that has a negative connotation, just trying to make a sale or trying to make a check. Can you kind of speak to that? And like, how does somebody change that about the way they see themselves? Because mirroring is so important, which is a lot of what you're talking about, even with the tonality in the beginning, is that mirroring effect. But you have to have the right picture of yourself if you want to reflect it to the client. So talk about that kind of stuff. How do they get that right?
I mean, I think number one is a lot of times most people come into this business with more time than cash, right? So a lot of times, self-image wise, people look at their self-worth in their own bank account, right? Mm-hmm. And that creates a stressful scenario for them. And then they push that upon their clients on the phone. Clients can tell that they're frustrated when they're making dials, for example. Clients can tell that you're desperate when you get in front of them because you lack control, in the home. When you lead, guide, and direct in the house, all good things happen. When you're the professional and you make professional recommendations and you make trial closes along the way, that's when you can make a lot of progress in the sales process. So that's why throughout different scenarios, when we're talking about psychology, I think number one, when you're sitting down with clients, it's important for you to use word tracks along the way. Simple ones like, does that make sense, John and Mary? Are you tracking with me?
What's the psychology behind that? Like that, because I picked that up and I use it so often that I would, my wife, she was like, you tell me that again. I was like, man, I'm sorry. This is what I do all day. Like, when I'm talking to clients and agents, like, because I'm like, babe, does that make sense? Like, what do you mean, does that make sense? Like, what are you talking? Well, talk about the psychology behind does that make sense? And why is that so important to use that as you guide a client?
Because if they're agreeing with you throughout the process, then it's just going to be that much more agreeable to the end when you ask for their driver's license.
So you're stacking yeses.
Yeah. It's literally like a sequence of mini sales to, all these battles to win the war, right?
Got
and
it.
They all stack up in your favor. But if you're not checking interest along the way and almost playing certain types of games along the way, it's important for you to really set yourself apart. The other thing about psychology is a lot of times people don't realize that, hey, they may have sat with a client already or sat with a producer already that went over a 2.5 hour sales presentation. And you go in and we don't ask any good questions about, whether they've met with anybody, what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. Man, you can carve off a lot of time, energy, and effort with good questions in a house. And that sets the precedence for you to really then do your own presentation based off of where they're at. There's so many different elements of what we can do to help improve the overall scenario. That's huge. I think when we're talking about psychology, Paul, you need 5 things in every single house, but emotion is probably the biggest driving factor. And I think it's the area that most salespeople suffer. Most salespeople don't know when to drive the emotion and how to drive the emotion. And there's certain areas where, whether, if it's income replacement, 52% of life insurance, according to LIMRA, is sold off of income replacement. So like when you literally can kill them on paper and then ask them challenging questions in regards to how they handle their bills after that. And most people this is where the psychology comes in. Most people, because they're not able to drive the emotion that they like in the sale, they might say, hey, Mary, if John dies tomorrow and you don't have $5,000 coming in, how are you going to handle the mortgage, your car payments, your bills? What would that look like? And they say something, and well, I would just, I'll probably just move in with my sister or my daughter, and we'd start over, but that's the current plan. Like, so most people stop there and maybe just listen, but then you drive down and say, listen, let's be honest with each other. There's a very high probability that your daughter's not really fired up about you coming back to her house, number one. Number two, that doesn't have to be the case. Is that what you really want? Or is that why we actually filled out the form in the beginning? So you start to, the more that you can give the hypotheticals, Paul, and drive the points downward, so the value drives up, so it exceeds price and people buy, that's the ticket. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different areas, whether you're talking about current life insurance. That's another great area to because you can just say, have you had a family member die with or without life insurance? That's going to be a one way question. And you can literally say, they'll say, no, I didn't. How did that work out for your family? It's going to be a bad scenario. Yes, I did. And what did that look like for your family? So you can start to talk about, and then when they're talking about a family member or a friend and them having life insurance, then they start to put themselves in that picture and they're talking through the process.
So that's kind of like how, because we've heard the whole sales is a transfer of thoughts and ideas where you've transferred it to them. They then take ownership and they move to action from that thought. And dude, what I'm hearing is like a lot of that. Like when you're getting deep and driving depth in things, when it comes to the value, the reason, the why, what it's going to look like. When they say, I'm going to move in with my daughter. Well, is that what you want to have happen, Mary? Like, is that what you would ideally like to have happen? Well, no. Okay, well, what would you like to have? When you get depth like that, you're now starting to get them to imagine, like you said, something that they've not experienced, something that they don't wake up thinking about. But people don't know the difference between what they're experiencing and what they imagine. So if you could paint that picture, they live in it, they're experiencing these thoughts and emotions derived from the thoughts, they're therefore going to start moving by that. And Matt, I think also for me, like I was trying to get better. I wanted to build more competency in the business. And that's why the training and it was nonstop. But when I started to get my care more up, like when I just cared more about the clients. And the funny thing is, the way I did that was I stopped staying surface on those financial inventory questions, where you ask those deep questions about what's going to happen, and you get them to live in the picture, because I was selling myself on how important it was. Like when I got done, I was like, wow, like that is I'm living in the picture with them too. Yeah. So now when I go call the next client, the importance of what I'm helping people with, which reflects the importance of who I am and what I'm able to do in the service I'm providing. Now I'm more likely to have that doctor mindset where it's like, I'm serving you and you need me, right? And I think it's almost like, Matt, if agents could get this, you could know exactly what you know now, and you'll go up 20% in helping families. It's almost like if, no matter what your background was, and to your point, Matt, about the bank account and tying yourself to your prior experiences, and most people's past wasn't so successful that they said, oh, I'm going to join FFL. Right. Like stuff had happened where you could carry guilt or shame or whatever into starting the business. But if you could almost pretend like, no matter what your background was, if all of a sudden we dumped you off in like some impoverished place in Africa and you're going to go to orphanage and you had all this food and money to go give out, you wouldn't be thinking like, well, I don't know if I'm qualified to give this out. And are these people going to really, no, of course they want. You're feeling such a massive need that you would feel empowered, equipped, and like you'd go out there with confidence, like, man, I'm doing something great. If you could get that, because that's how important it is what you're doing with Family First Life. With your license, you're going out there and you're seeing people that desperately need life insurance, and they've actually raised their hand and said, we know we need it. Can you come help me? And then all the other stuff doesn't matter. Like the rejection and the no's, that shouldn't influence your psychology, where now you start dropping your psychology and how you see yourself and how you see the client because of a couple experiences. You should just be able to discount and say, man, maybe they're having a bad day, maybe they're a little off, but that doesn't dictate what I'm doing is so important. And then you keep your mindset at the right level, right? And I think that's so important to be like that. Matt, can you talk about, like, I think I've heard this said before, and I think it was Dave Anderson maybe said it. He said you teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
I didn't know how the client should treat me in the beginning. I didn't understand that. I was just trying to make a sale. I listened to a lot of the things like your responses to clients and the way you handled situations, and what it helped me understand was how they should treat me.
Right.
Can you talk about like what do you do and how do you set it up, and maybe even some situations where you teach a client how to treat you, even if it's on the phones, if we want to start there, and then go into the in-home, because the one thing I do understand is that the client, how they see you, you can't control before they meet you.
Right.
And that's usually derived from prior experiences. That could be from, how many phone calls do we get on our cell phone that it's a telemarketer. So they might see you initially when you say, hello, my name is, as a telemarketer, but then you teach them how to treat you from there on out. They might, when you walk in the client's house, they might see you or treat you in such a way or want to treat you based off the fact that the guy that just knocked the door trying to sell them a vacuum or a water softener and the experience they had there. So they bring that into you. But the moment you see them, you then teach them how to treat you.
Exactly.
Talk about that. Like, what does that look like on the phones? And maybe if we want to start there as far as objections or what they say and how you teach them how to treat you.
Well, I think the number one scenario is you want to make sure that your time you're busier than them. If you're busier than them, you usually don't get the busy objection, by the way. But when you're setting the appointment and you're setting it, let's say within 48 hours or however you're setting your appointments, it's important for you to, lock down the time period, but just say, hey, I'm going to see 8 to 10 families, tomorrow. I expect you and your spouse to be there. Any reason why you're not there? John or Mary, can you grab a pen? We have a 738. This in regards to life insurance quotes you requested online. My job is to get you this information. Are you good at keeping your appointments? Is there any reason why you won't be there? All those little tie downs and whatnot they're not used to hearing those things on the phone, because the biggest scenario is people don't have money problems. We have people problems. So your ability to tie down appointments and really get in front of people is the difference. And once they've agreed to the time period, Paul, where you have to slow down the call is the tie down. Because you can slow down the call that much quicker, tie it down in the beginning, and they realize this guy or this gal, this person is literally, they're a professional. I try to give them the fact that, we're not interested. And he said, were you not interested because the price was too high or because you didn't qualify your health? That's the purpose of my phone call. You know what I mean? Like, you're just equipped with all the objections. Now, people can tell if you're stumbling all over the phone, you're not going to get the respect. That's just the truth. So definitely always starts on the phone. And then obviously, as you get in the in-home, Paul, setting the table. Hey, I do, mortgage protection, life insurance, final expense. I do a lot of retirement income planning. What I'm going to do along the way, Paul, is I'm going to give you some free advice in regards to these areas. Does that sound fair? Trial close. Does that sound fair? They say, yeah. Now I just got permission. Free advice. Who doesn't want free advice, Paul?
Yeah.
People don't know how to talk to people about their retirement. I just asked, I'm going to give you some free advice. Does that sound fair, Paul? And they say yes every single time. And then all of a sudden, you can locate premium inside of how do you stand out, in my opinion, in the house and sound like a professional? They're paying a couple hundred extra dollars a month on their mortgage. What most people do, Paul, is they take that $200 you're paying, they put it into a life insurance policy that they get all their money back to pay off their mortgage early, but they still have the protection to cover the whole mortgage. Does that make sense? And what did I do? I didn't even offer a plan. I just little trial pitch, right? Scenario. That's what most people do. And I'm looking at them and I'm wondering how they're reacting to it. I'm not doing anything.
What's the psychology in that? This is what most people do.
That peer review, right? I don't care if it's, millennials, I don't care if it's baby boomers, Gen X, etc. Most people want to be in the crowd.
It's like the herd concept.
Yeah, 100% of the time, right? So, and it's the other scenarios is finding like credit cards. People might not have $100, $200 a month, $300 a month for a life insurance policy, but they're spending $800 a month on their credit card. Maybe they have a blended rate of 15% on their credit cards. You can show them how to go to nerdwallet.com, get 0% for 18, 24 months, pay $500 toward principal. You know what most people do when they don't have life insurance policies? They do this 0% balance transfer, and they put $500 a month, which is way more going to principal than you ever had with your $800 a month. So you're going to knock this credit card debt off that much quicker. And then we take the other $300, we put it into a life insurance policy that protects your family to pay off the credit cards, so your mortgage, etc., protect your income, and you get all your money back at the end, so you can't make a money mistake. So that's what most people do. Does that make sense?
Hey, and when you do that, dude, like the client didn't expect you to give that kind of value in that way. Like they had an expectation when you went in the door. That wasn't it. So that there, fair to say, like it exceeds your expectation.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah.
And if you've exceeded their expectation, now they're more inclined to listen and be led and guided, which is a good thing because they need help. They're uninformed. They need somebody that they can trust, that's going to lead and guide them. And when you exceed expectation, that's a big, big deal, right? When you do that. And, I think that I remember in the beginning, man, like I would tell people like, this is what I did. This is what you should do.
Yep.
And that was my approach. And man, it just never worked well. And it was like, if I was telling, I was selling, and people don't like to be sold, they like to buy. But when I took a step back and I said, hey, listen, I had a client just like you last week in your same situation, Bob, very similar. They were 72. They had, $100,000 in equity or whatever it is. It could be final expense. Mary had a client just like you that was, on a very fixed income, they knew their budget very well because it was the same every month, Social Security, the bills, and they were very concerned about making sure that they could find some in their budget because they were so concerned about making sure when they died there wasn't a burden left. And what I was able to do is help them find a plan that fit their budget and gave them the peace of mind. And so the good news is every client I sit with is pretty much in your situation. And because they're state regulated plans, we typically can find a plan that's a good fit. And all I did was let them feel like, because we know when we sit with the final expense client, their biggest thing is like, can I afford this? My budget's so tight. And now their wall's up because I don't want to know it's important, but then can't get it. So I got to have this wall to protect my ability to feel good, okay about myself. And when you can get in and tell a story and say, this is what most people do, it allows them to kind of elevate. And people want to be the better version. They want to be the saver. They want to be the person paying their house off early. They want to be the person that takes care of their family. And so when you talk about clients in their same situation, this is what they do. They want to join that tribe. They want to join that. And I think that's such a big deal. So today, what I would ask you guys, as we get into the next question, are you doing that? Like what Matt said, are you saying like, hey guys, let me just tell you what most clients do in your situation. That's it.
Yep.
And does that make sense? Because are you tracking with me?
I mean, why just be an informational specialist, Paul, and give them 2 options, 3 options, 1 option, whatever it's going to be, and expect them to choose one?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Why not build the value along the way and give those when you find opportunities? And you have to try to trial close them before they even. You have to sell concepts, and you identify problems, and then you sell concepts to their problems, and that's how the whole transaction would work.
That's good. Hey, I think this is going to help a lot of people because I think initially when you get an objection or you get some you call pushback or whatever, something that doesn't fall in line with just like the perfect scenario, a lot of times you could feel like, oh, like you're getting pushed against a wall, you know? Like, I know I felt like that. Like, can I get a quote? And I was like, I just felt like I got to overcome something. But I think when you're so convicted in knowing who you are and the value you bring, that you can take an objection and you can turn it around for the good, where they can now see you differently than they saw you before the objection. So it's actually necessary a lot of times for you to flip the role in their mind, where they're like, "Who? This person is a doctor.
Yeah.
This person is the one that I really need, and I should be so thankful." And so, like, if a client comes in and they say, I know this has happened, but so Matt, I want to see how you handle it. You walk in the door. They say, "Hey, dude, I don't want a presentation. Just give me the numbers. Just give me the numbers. What is it going to cost me? What do you do to kind of show who you are
Yeah.
and use that for a good?"
Yeah. That kind of leads me to the point is you're going to meet 4 types of people, Paul. It's kind of PASE. You're going to meet people that are practical, more of the typical shoppers online, etc. You're going to meet people of action that's what you're just talking about. You don't build rapport with people of action. Then you're going to meet social people and you're going to meet emotional people. Emotional people are the easiest ones to sell because 95% of decision makings are based on emotion. You'll see that. Social people you better be careful with because you could be in the house for a long time, make friends and not get sales. So with a person of action, like you're just talking about, said, "Hey, I just want the price. That's what you're out there." I say, I just take control, right? I say, "Perfect. That's actually why I'm here. So I'm going to ask you about 3 minutes of financial questions, about 3 minutes on your health. It'll take me 10 minutes to get you the information that you requested, and we'll get right into it. So what's your current income?" You know what I mean? Like it's just a lot of people think I need to build rapport and I need to do, you don't have to. And especially one of the biggest errors when you meet someone of action is to try to tell me more about your children.
Right.
And where did you grow up? And what's that flag on the wall? It's like, dude, you're with somebody of action and you're actually making them angry by not getting down to business. So
Sure.
I think, that it sets a tone for being a professional too, like we're talking about. And the other thing too, is obviously, transfer of enthusiasm can be 50% of the sale. So people want someone that's 100% certain versus the lukewarm approach. You and I both know I've been in houses where I've been lukewarm for whatever reason. And I'm like, well, I know why I missed that sale because I was just like
passion,
going through the motions, whatever. But man, when I get excited and I'm trying to help them save money and do this and do that, talk to them about their financial position, talk about their 401k, talk to them about their return, all those different areas. Then all of a sudden I'm getting excited because I feel like I'm really helping someone. And that's the difference between you winning and losing, because people don't want to do business with someone that isn't 100% certain. If anything you buy, it's the analogy that I had, like, remember 5 years ago when I was supposed to get neck surgery and all that stuff? Yeah. So if the doctor would have came in, Paul, and said to me, "You know what? I was kind of thinking you might just maybe want to get some neck surgery. I'm going to go through the front of your neck and that's what I'm thinking. I don't know, though. We'll see."
Right.
But you know what he said? Yeah. He said, "Hey, whatever, your scheduled date is here. This is what we're doing. Right. This is why we're doing it. And this is what I'd recommend." And what's funny about that is later on, I didn't have to get the neck surgery, and he was like, I wouldn't get it because pain went away. But it was interesting because he was leading, guiding, directing me just like you would want a doctor. No different with us in the house, right? Same exact scenario of literally people want to be led. The reason why they're in financial positions where they have, credit card debt and they've saved limited funds, and we're talking about middle America, is because they haven't made great financial positions. So they need someone to come in and lead, guide, and direct them into what life insurance can do for their family.
That's such a big deal, man. I mean, that what you just covered was massive. Like if you, now the enthusiasm, certainty, it starts before you get out of your car. It starts before you make the phone call, because if you're calling these clients, guys, and you're just like, I need to book appointments, and it's about you and it's not about them, you're not going to be passionate. The doctor that's the best, he really cares about providing solutions. He's so passionate about the value he gives and how he can help people and restore their health, save their lives. Like, that's what makes not because he knows the most. And a lot of times he knows the most because he's so passionate, so he sacrifices time to learn more. But the passion's where it starts. And so before you call the client, if you can get your mind right on the value that you're providing and how big of a deal it is, and almost imagining somebody passing away and you delivering the claim and all those kind of things, if you can do that, then when you go into the client's house or when you make the phone call, your passion is through the roof. And then your behavior, like your responses to, can you just give me the numbers? I want to shop around. Or can you call me back next week? Your responses is going to be basically tied to your thought, which is certainty and the value you're giving. So your response is going to be the right one. You know, when they say, can you call me back next week? I love to call you back next week. And in fact, my schedule, I'm managing multiple different counties. So I'm going to do my best to get this to you because I know how important it is. Let me go and put down some notes. Matt, what time are you typically in? 5 o'clock. Okay, listen, Matt, the next couple of weeks, we're managing a lot of counties. I know how important this is for you. I can't do 5 tomorrow. And I can't do anything after 5 actually. But what I'll do is this. I'm going to try to move my 7 to an earlier appointment. Put you in at 7 because I know it's important. If I can't make that happen, I'll let you know. But let's just plan on 7 o'clock so I can get this out for you like you want for you and your family. Now, the only thing I do ask is you give me a window between. And you can do that if you're so certain in the fact that they need this because they might not come home next week. But it starts with enthusiasm that you create. It's not something that needs to be created based off the client's interaction with you or somebody giving you a call. You create that in your mind. You have to see it in your mind. But Matt, your analogy about doctor is absolutely right. Even if he was wrong, you'd been happier if he was wrong but was certain with it.
Heck yeah.
But if he was uncertain, even if he was right, you would have always thought he was wrong, and that would have plagued you.
The big thing in the house as well is when you do a hypothetical. This is crucial in my opinion in the sales process. Let's say you got a 60-year-old and say, you know, John, let's say you've died a little bit sooner than we hoped for at 71. Here's what your house is going to be worth, round numbers. Here's what you'll owe, round numbers. Here's the equity you'll have. Here's the position you'll be in. And you paint a picture like that and you draw it out for them and you put them in that scenario. That is where that certainty and that storytelling and putting them in the picture is the value just goes up tremendously when you do things like that. And you say, because nobody thinks they're going to die tomorrow. But if we can say, okay, let's say you die a little bit sooner and you paint that picture and you put them in there, it changes the dynamic of the sales process. And so hypotheticals, whether you're killing money on paper, killing people on paper, that's such a huge scenario to walk people through because that's where you'll see a lot of aha moments for the clients. And the other thing, the small things that you have to pay attention to, whether you're doing a good job or not. Let's say that credit card example we just talked about earlier, or we're talking about like 401k and hey, you should be doing something different in regards to your 401k as far as tax-free retirement. You take the free money first, but the second best type of money is tax-free. So I'd recommend you're putting 10% in, but you're only getting a 5% match. So I would recommend we take another 5% and put it into a tax-free retirement vehicle that would yield you a much better process for your retirement. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And I would recommend you write this down and say things like that. Like, I'd recommend you write this down so we can cover this later. And if they're writing things down, there is your cue that you're being successful in the sales process. If you tell them to write something down or do this or grab a pen and hey, I'm going to need you to grab a pen and paper as well. We're going to take some notes along the way because I want to give you some free advice. Because I'm sure you'd think I'm pretty valuable when I see 8 to 10 people a day for the last 12 years of my life. So I'm pretty sure I've seen these scenarios time and time again, and I can give you an idea of what people do to give them the most amount of success in this phase of their life. You know what I mean? And so you just start to take control of those areas. It makes me hungry to want to have a sale right now.
Well, dude, the thing is this, like for everybody watching this, it's like, dude, man, I was doing that when I didn't know what came after. Like if I go back, like I would hear just the whole free money, tax-free money, tax deferred, and then taxable. I would hear that on a call, and I was like, that sounds really good. Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. In fact, that makes me feel smarter just hearing it. Well, if you say it to a client, guess what they think? They think you're smarter. And dude, I remember not knowing what came after that. Just like, and I would use that sometimes, even if they didn't have any extra money, just so that way I look smarter. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I need them to look at me in such a way where I can guide them to make the right decision. And I would say that, and they're like, wow, that's really good. And I say, so yeah, anytime you have extra, this is kind of how you want to look at it. And then I would leave it alone. And then I remember when a client actually had extra money, I did all that. And then I was like, so I'll come back next week and talk to you about it. Guys, I didn't know what I was going to talk about next week. But then that's when I dove into some training and figured it out. And it was like, this isn't that deep. And it was still uncomfortable because I hadn't done it. But that's the ticket, is like, you don't have to wait to feel like your experience has made you smart or your experience has got you long enough. Just do it anyway.
Sounding smart is so important, in my opinion, in the house. Like right now, for example, inflation's the big topic for everyone, right? And I know from like October to October, the consumer price index is at like 6.1% or something like that. So inflation is a big number right now. And the 10-year treasury bond's like 1.6% or something like that. So that means that people are in the negative like 4.5% in regards to their retirement, just because the cost of goods has gone up so much. And it's like, I'm going to say certain things like, what has, I've got a guy for my retirement planning. What is he doing about the 4.5% negative true net gain that you have to deal with if you're just going to put your money in treasury bonds versus that? What's the current plan? Well, I don't know. I would have to talk to him. That means that you don't know what the plan is. What I'm trying to do is I can show you a way to, combat inflation, give you lifetime income, and really give you an ease in your retirement. Does that sound fair? Just talking to him. You never say the word annuity, but you just pitch things. I'm always pitching things like that. Tax-free retirement for an IUL, or their annuity opportunity.
And even if they don't get it, it's still serving the fact
Yeah.
that when they now look at you for an additional plan, that they're going to be like, they'll feel good about being led by you because of how you're setting that all up. I mean, I remember I used to do that with like term and whole life, so if I just felt like they weren't really like, being led by me, like they're like, I don't know about this guy, like, or maybe they were still seeing me as like their perception of the salesperson they thought I was going to be based off of their experiences in the past, which is how they derive that vision of who you are. I remember just saying, guys, do you kind of know the difference between term and whole life? I would just say that. And they'd say, well, I think so. And I said, well, let me just break it down so you guys can kind of see what that looks like, because I have a lot of clients that'll say, Paul, I heard term is the best and whole life isn't any good. And typically that's just a sales agent that's captive that sells term. And then I've had some that say, I heard, whole life is great and term's terrible. Usually it's a captive sales rep that sells only whole life, not term. I'm a field underwriter guy, so they're both great. It just depends on the unique situation. And so term is temporary. It's good to cover you for a block of time. So for your guys' age, you get your money back. It's a great plan. Whole life's more permanent, something you probably want to have if you're a little older to lock in price. But that's kind of how that works. Does that make sense? And I would just throw that out there because I would use it for them to see me the way I wanted them to see me, which was not a sales rep, a field underwriter. So, and I wasn't disparaging both. And even maybe it served a purpose because maybe they heard term was bad and I was going to sell them. But it didn't even matter. I did it just so I can say, hey, let me give you a glimpse of how you need to see me. And I would do it indirectly by saying most clients, and I would tell that story. And then when I went back into the financial inventory or whatever else, they would see me a little bit more like I wanted them to see me. That was going to allow them to be led by me, And so that stuff's so important. Matt, as we close up, man, talk about, and I think I remember hearing you say this a while back. You said the top producers, the one common attribute they all have is self-confidence. Like that's the number one thing that the commonality that they have. How does somebody develop self-confidence as a producer to be the doctor that shows confidence, right, so to speak? And again, I know you're not doctors, but for that analogy we've been using, but where they have that confidence because people want to be led by confident people.
Yeah.
How do they develop that?
Well, I think this leads into people's personal lives a lot. And what I mean by that is, number one is, do you have a daily routine? Meaning, are you waking up at the same time? Are you working out? Are you eating a little cleaner? Are you trying to get better? Because at the end of the day, we've talked about this. You know what? Progress equals happiness. What people tell me all the time, my why is my kids, and that, I'm not, everybody's why is different. My why is my kids, my wife, and I think those are all great. my why is all of that, but it's progress. You know, the happiest times I am is when you're making progress. So how do we make progress in our lives that can bleed into how we make progress in the home? So it starts with all of that up front. Like, are you reading some books? Do you have some mentors that you talk to? Do you spend non-income producing hours studying the game? Do you read like Market Watch articles to talk about retirement stuff? I mean, 4% of Hall of Fame producer, or 4% of Family First Life producers write annuities, and 85% of Hall of Fame producers write annuities. That's a big number. So there's things that people know that a lot of the newer people or people that have been around don't know, apparently, but it's a thinking person's game. And it's always small wins, right? If you can get the small wins, you become more confident. Your self-worth goes up, and then it shows in the house. And that's why it's like, you know, if you worked out for 30 minutes a day or whatever the number is for you, and you are, that's a small win. Like, you can take that, can transfer into other things. But when you print your leads out the night before and you're prepared and all that stuff, that's a small win that you already set it up for the day. So you're not scrambling and freaked out and not prepared, because proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. So there you go.
That was a lot of P's.
There's a lot of P's.
Yeah, it's like me naming all my kids.
Yeah, it's too many.
Six P's, including me. But I think that's a great way to wrap this thing up, man. Is like it does all matter, you know.
Yeah.
Like, if you can just start keeping the small promises to yourself, you know, you'll build that self-confidence up and that dependability. No different than like as you work with agents or a staff member. If they do what they say they're going to do, you start to feel like, man, I feel like I have less yoke on me because they're dependable, and I feel like when I pass it to them, it's going to get done. Well, that's how you want to feel about yourself, you know. Well, how do you do that? Same thing. If you say, I'm going to wake up at this time, you wake up at this time, and heck, nobody's perfect. I mean, I screw stuff up all the time. But just to say, I did this and I did it. It could be, I'm going to listen to this call live and take notes. That's a win. That's a win, you know. And so I would suggest, as we go out there today, guys, what can we do today to be able to check on and say, hey, that's another win. That's another win. Because if we don't stop and say what a win is, or clarify what little wins are, then we'll just go through the motions, and we might have some little wins, but if we're not focused on it as a little win, then we might not even be able to build the self-confidence that's there for us to build. If we just said, hey, today, this is what I'm going to do, without a plan, without preparation, you're just going through the motions. And then you get through the end of the day and you feel exhausted. You don't feel any more confident because you just let circumstances and conditions dictate your feet and your movement. But if we could step back and say, hey, today, what path am I on? What steps do I need to take? And then when you take them, that's where you build self-confidence. That's when you leave the day with energy. So guys, let's go crush it. Matt, thank you so much, dude.
Thank you.
Always an honor to have you on, man. That was phenomenal training, dude. This is something that I'm looking forward to listening to it back and being able to be a better trainer because of the stuff that you provided today. And so guys, the one thing I know that to be true is that everybody wants to help other people. And if you don't, you're going to suck at this business. That's a fact. But if you love helping other people, one way you could do that is just a simple share. So share this on your YouTube, share it on your Facebook, social media, share it out so people can see this, because this is going to serve them well. Also, like, subscribe, and comment on the YouTube channel, because every single week we do a pool drawing, and you can win free lead money to help you go out there, take this stuff, put it into practice by seeing more families, because you've got more leads to call. So guys, make it a big week. Be strong. Stay steadfast. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
That's some significant style that
I like it.
only Casey can probably pull off that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It goes good. He's got good hair too.
Yeah, he's got some good waves going on there. A lot of envy and jealousy on my end.
What's up, guys? We are giving away $250 in lead credit once again. If you commented on last week's video, which is playing right here, you're automatically entered to win $250 in free leads. All you gotta do to enter yourself into next week's drawing is just a comment right down below. It's that simple. It's all you gotta do. So what are you doing? Feel free, leave a comment right now. I'll give you like 5 seconds. I hope you left a comment, because free leads are amazing and they can help you make so much money. You can turn that $250 into $25,000 or $40K. Shoot, you might be able to turn it into $100K. I don't know. Only you know that. But free leads, who doesn't love those? I'm going to click this button right over here. We're going to see who won this week. Best of luck, guys. Let's see who won. We've got Stick Spree. Thanks for the great info. You're welcome for the great info, Stick Spree. Go ahead and get in contact with Victoria. Her phone number is going to be right down here. Guys, it's that simple. Just leave a comment and you can win free leads. All you gotta do is push that button, you can win. Just leave a comment. If you haven't already, please, before you exit this page, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe, like this, share it, and thank you guys for watching every week. We love you. We'll take care. Make it a great week. Bye.